So I guess like real quick. So what? So how did you end up getting into doing Lost in Sound? Like what led you to wanting to do that actually?
I, I think it's kind of connected to what I was doing before I started doing it,
Okay.
and it was also connected to like just falling in love with Berlin.
Okay.
Really.
Okay.
Like I'd been visiting Berlin for years before I moved here,
Mm-hmm.
and I would just always come back whenever I'd have the opportunity to,
Yeah.
and it got to this point where I came here for a month in 2017,
Yeah.
and it was like a real. I was having a think about how to reboot myself. I in London, I'd become a full-time DJ by mistake, and
Yeah.
I ended up. I'd sort of saw how London culture had really changed in the 10 years since that I'd been being a DJ. I was doing other things like bits of writing and working for event companies, but
Yeah.
I felt quite blessed that I was always able to kind of get like gigs at the weekend.
Yeah.
But it was always a hustle, and I saw the way that the kind of music that I was playing 10 years beforehand in places like Shoreditch was very much. There was a sort of level of trust that was given to DJs to kind of provide interesting sounds,
Yeah.
and to sort of like you're trusted that you're in a venue. I know the music that will really be good. And as London became more corporate, particularly over what happened with the Olympics onwards, it became more of a kind of thing where people just wanted to get drunk and dance to the hits.
Yeah.
Fine, I love the hits,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
like 5 years of playing, dancing in whatever it is that what's that Bruce Springsteen tune? Do 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 do. Even if with the
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
like that, or Whitney Houston,
Oh yeah, yeah.
or Bump and Grind, or any of these songs that are all brilliant, but like it just felt like there was this limited palette of music that you could play, and it just got smaller and smaller. And like the people get more and more drunk because working in London is really tough. So people get really, really fucking drunk at the weekend and they take it out on the DJ. And I was feeling like, really, I don't like this anymore. And so I came to Berlin to think, what can I do? What the fuck can I do? And then I just kind of started to write, and just the ideas and the project came out of that.
Okay.
But it's always come out of this idea that I think for me music's about inclusivity.
Okay.
It's always gets a bit too over intellectual sometimes, I feel.
Yeah.
Just for my own personal thing, like I have so many friends that actually I'll rephrase that, like I feel that sometimes people are excluded from the conversation of music because they don't know. They're judged for not knowing what label something came out on, or
I can
they
definitely
can't read music, or they don't have a studio or whatever like that.
No, I think this is like very important because I think sometimes, honestly, like not even like just in music, but I think that the emotional intelligence that's provided by certain things
Yeah.
has to be like acknowledged, and it doesn't necessarily have to come from knowing the label or knowing what key something is written in. Sometimes it's just like a feeling, and I think that is the thing that has to be embraced a bit more. And I think this is where the actual value is being held.
This is exactly it. This is
Yeah.
what and this is the whole project is about that. Like it's obviously occasionally there's conversations that are technical, and there's occasionally conversations where it gets a bit train spottery sometimes, but that's just people's passion, and that's how someone's trying to explain something, or I'm trying to explain something, but really it is about kind of humanizing music and kind of connecting with that, like you say, the emotional intelligence, and and like otherwise I don't like the idea that someone could really be wanting to make music, but that for whatever reason they feel that like it's off limits to them, and so it's a continual process of just tapping into the emotional intelligence.
No, it is that, and also like speaking of that, like there's another thing that I have a problem with is I've seen people that made music just because they knew that they could make money with it.
Mm.
I feel like that in itself is a problem. I mean, I think it's good to have songs that
Yeah.
you can enjoy. That might even be poppy. I'm not like an anti-pop guy.
No, and not
Like,
for people
sometimes-
making money with music as well, but it's like you're talking about if people were specifically
Yeah, it's
making
kind of,
music for
yeah, for
being
like,
paid for it.
Yeah, and I think this is when you get into an area where not only does it take away from other people doing music and what the actual value is, and dilutes that, but it also gives other people like the wrong impression. It's it's basically just throwing salt in the game of like the way everything should be. Basically, because I don't know, I have this thing where I feel like everybody has something they feel like they should be doing, or that at some point that there's some activity they're driven to do. Some are driven to like heal, some are driven to just drive, some are driven to create different things. It can be anything. It could be a fucking trash man.
Mhm.
But one thing is never more important than the other.
No, yeah.
Each one has like its own place.
Mm.
And I think when you have somebody doing music that doesn't really care about it, then that takes away from it. Because, like we were talking about before, the emotional side of it, I think when you're doing it because that's what you love, then that becomes much more apparent and more present. But if you're doing it as a sort of calculated money-making scheme, then this is where, I mean, it automatically takes out the emotional side of it.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, it's like my personal experience is that if that's going on, I'm unless these people are geniuses and they also can kind of completely convince me that of their emotional intelligence as well, I'm just not noticing. Like I'm blanking them out. It's like being in a shopping mall and you've got the shops that you like going to, but I just totally didn't see Zara there at all. You know,
I know exactly what you mean.
It's going on, but you feel it, don't you? You don't resonate with them, you know, because their frequencies are set in a certain way that even if they might make a tune that really works in a sort of a function, or it connects with people in a certain way, for some reason, like the frequencies of that, for some reason I won't gel with, and so I kind of avoid it. You know?
Yeah, that's the thing. I know what it is for me personally, but I know that I've been told I'm like weird as shit for like many years, and so I'm not the one that buys this. But I do know that it's like a formula, basically.
Yeah.
But speaking of the playing the songs, I'm trying to like cut it down because I know we need to like head out.
No worries.
But I know you were talking about. I know you mentioned the. Okay, this is actually for me. This is me being selfish. So, after you did you ever hear? Bump and Grind. This was R. Kelly, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So did you find out about stuff that he was doing?
It sort of really filtered through over lots of years, from what I can remember. Like, I think it's sort of. I mean, I know bits, but it was like people were still legitimately playing his music.
Yeah.
Even though people were also talking about like his behavior as well.
Now, I was gonna say, like, how did you feel about that? And honestly, before you answer that, I'm gonna say, like, no judgment. It's just one of those like weird, like funny things that I make fun of in my head because honestly, I don't necessarily always believe everything that's in the media about people, but in this case, I think that shit happened.
I mean, I have to admit, I haven't really. It's not as I don't know the details.
Yeah,
really.
and also I have to say that I tend to be a little bit lenient on it, but like I can't listen to his stuff somehow without having a bit of a guilty conscience. But at the same time, it's definitely a part of me growing up. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. Earlier today, like, it just popped in my head. It was just like, give me that honey love.
Well, this is a thing, isn't it? It's like you can't erase like the earworm.
Yes,
that's the earworm doesn't. The earworm doesn't have the morality that other parts of the way we are have. You know, like yeah, I mean, there's been so many kind of cancels in the last few years, and I don't know the ins and outs, but I've generally got behind most of them.
Yeah.
Like, I feel I've not put on Ryan Adams for a while,
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not even like sure who that is.
right. I mean,
yeah,
Brian Adams. He's basically like if you're not the B of Brian Adams, another artist pops out. It's like, oh, I'm a different person. But he did. I think he was very. He did. There's a very Me Too. There's a lot of complex bad stuff that is alleged to have happened.
Yeah.
There. But yeah, I don't want to really go near it. Really, to be honest.
No, honestly, this is the thing. Like yeah. I try not to go too much into like a lot of it either, and so I tend to be maybe on the lenient side about it, except for like extreme cases. And for me personally, this is just for me personally.
Well, we all have our own personal.
Yeah, so that's why it's like I
feel.
would have like no judgment on anybody else about what they did or didn't do. But for me, myself personally, R. Kelly is one of the ones that I feel weird about. So this is why,
in terms that you feel conflicting,
because it's like a matter of like actually like supporting him, even to the degree that because I had the earworm part, there's a part of me that wants to make a R. Kelly cover album, produced all by myself, where I play everything and sing everything, just so I can still listen to it, but the money doesn't go to him. Yeah. That's like another secret project.
Right, but wouldn't you get the royalties from the compositions? Yeah.
There's got to be a way around it.
Yeah. You could kind of just, isn't it like with like when you used to get like cheap knockoff like Italian soundtracks where they just changed the chords, or in advertising they just changed the chords of a well-known song just enough, and the lyrics just enough.
Yeah, like
I don't see nothing wrong in a little bump and squeeze.
Bump and mind.
A bump and mind, yeah.
Yeah.
Or a little knock and squeeze.
Yeah.
That sounds horrible, sorry.
Hey, we should actually record that.
Right.
Okay, but just to sort of like narrow it down. So one of the things we always ask like all guests on Mixtape Menage is, so what's a song that you might have loved when you were younger, but that you might be a little bit embarrassed to admit that you like now?
Where'd you start? I mean, this isn't one of the ones you've asked me to bring in, is it? Like, this is different from that.
Oh no! This is like spontaneous.
I mean, like
this was like supposed to be a curveball.
There was a whole era of music that was like in early 90s, because I was like I was an indie kid, I'm 46, so like in the early 90s when I was really getting into music, before you had Britpop, like just when grunge was sort of kicking off, like hip hop was a little bit too sort of I was listening to like Ice-T, but like I wasn't really connecting at that stage in my life with hip hop, and I wasn't really connecting with like early house music either. So it was indie music that I was really kind of connecting at that time, and there was so much bad stuff. Like there's this whole movement called Fraggle, and it was like bands like Ned's Atomic Dustbin, The Wonder Stuff. Like this is why it's bad, because you haven't heard it. Like it's literally history is, I don't know. I mean, but it's
just funny to me because when you say Fraggle, the first thing that comes to my mind is Fraggle Rock.
Exactly. Well, I think that's why they called it Fraggle, because like the people that played it, like they had like sort of, they're like white guys with like really bad dreadlocks that come from just not washing, and like sort of like German army surplus clothing, and like big t-shirts with tour dates of all the stuff written on, and and recorded in those kind of local recording studio kind of quality studios and stuff like that, and so I mean, and like I had a lot of affection at early times dancing to these kind of bands that that like were probably like, I think also when you're a teenage as well, there's a kind of, for me, there was a quality gap for a while.
Oh yeah, no, it happens. Do you have like one song that comes to mind in particular?
Yeah, there's this song called "Kill Your Television" by Ned's Atomic Dustbin.
Okay. You want to
Yeah.
sing it real quick?
No,
Come on. Okay.
it's
Hey,
so
Bob,
unmelodic. It's also it was like basically like they were doing punk, but for teenagers in the early '90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm not judging.
No, yeah. I mean,
Fair enough.
I've literally got a real. I know I'm slagging it, but I've got really fond affection for this. But it's really bad. It's like sort of picking up like instant noodles that you might have something that you have a real fond affection for in your larder cupboard, but you wouldn't cook to a bunch of friends.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can definitely understand that. Man, yeah, thank you like so much for
Pleasure.
coming.
Thank
also,
you.
Before you go, is there anything else that you want to push or promote, or anything you have coming up, or anything you have coming up that you want to tell anybody about?
When is this coming out?
It'll probably be a minute, definitely more than a month.
Oh, okay. Yes. If it's coming out in a month, yeah. Well, I mean, it's really amazing that they found that amazingly quick cure for corona, and suddenly life is normal again. It's amazing.
Okay.
I don't know. In a month's time, I don't know. Just I've got like all of the Beatles on the next podcast. Coming up. They've all actually. Yeah, no, cut that bit. Sorry, that's just me. No, I. Who knows? Who knows?
So you got all the Beatles, like
All of the Beatles. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got like a medium that's communicating John Lennon through.
What's her name again?
What's that?
The medium.
Madame von Kreuzberg.
Oh, actually, is she like down the street on Wienerstrasse?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, like behind like Golice. I've heard a lot of things about her. Actually.
Yeah. No, she's great. Yeah. She
Also, there was one day I went over here to the Chapato to get tacos, and I was like 2 cents short, and she actually like gave me 3 cents, and so I was like, after that, like, yeah, Madame von Kreuzberg, like, yeah, she's
Madame
cool.
von Kreuzberg.
She's
Definitely
cool.
big her up. Definitely.
Yeah.
If you want to get in contact with anyone, if you want to know what's going to happen next year, she'll sort you out.
No, exactly. Also, check her Instagram.
Yeah.
Totally.
But having said that, I do love those things. I love those sort of like little happenstances where, like, that day that you are really short of money, it just so happens someone buys you a coffee or something like that. Well, they always seem to happen like that, don't they?
No, actually, I love it when that happens. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, like, that's when I feel like I know that I'm in the right space and doing what I probably should be doing.
Yeah,
It's like
they are
when you're
literally little guidlines, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like that's when you know you're like in this flow.
Yeah,
And it's like it's all a part of the river, and it's kind of like you were supposed to. You're supposed to go ahead and go to this next thing that you're supposed to do, and sometimes it's like that saying of like trusting in the process too.
I live by that, or I try to. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit like riding a very difficult bike. Like, it's that finding that biting point where it feels natural.
Yeah.
And you kind of believe in what you're doing, but you're not squeezing at it to believe in it. You're just like flowing with it. And I think it can be like read in a cosmic way, but it's also just in a really practical way, isn't it? Like if you're going with the tide and it's working, that feedback you're getting from someone is genuine because they're picking up on the fact that it's working.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just this level of the human experience that isn't necessarily either isn't talked about, or is that sort of like known unknown or unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
Not to quote Sam Jackson, but yeah. But do you have any last words that you want to say to everybody?
Check out Lost and Sound. It's quite good. Sometimes
it is good.
Thank you.
It is good. It's very good.
I have good guests. Sometimes I manage to string a sentence together, but the guests are really good.
No, it's very good, man. Is it very good? Like the one with Ghost Poet School. There was another one that was like much earlier that I was like piecing together. That was like interesting. I think the first one where you were just in Berlin and kind of like piecing together and going to different people's places. Like what was the one with the guy from Einstein?
Oh, Alexander Hacker.
Einstein
Neubauten.
Einstein. I can say it. I promise I can say it.
Do you know what?
I can also do a British accent. I can also pronounce Einstein.
Einstein and I don't know if I've got it right, but I do remember the day before I went to meet him, like I was so nervous about having to say that word of the name of the band that I literally I kind of like got friends to record it for me, German friends to record them saying it, and then I was in the cafe going back replaying this bit of audio going Einstein, and then I got to meet him, and then it did feel like when I said it, my voice was like a robot voice. I said, so when you were doing Einstein de Neubau, like it'd been pressed in.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, and I still pronounced it wrong.
Oh, cool. Man, man, thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.